Andrew Wyeth's Spring might be one of the most overlooked masterpieces ever painted. Call me a contrarian, you wouldn't be the first, but I think it's better than his most famous painting, Christina's World, and almost no one talks about it. Now you might think I've overshot the runway with that praise, but this painting's so rich in meaning that it actually changes depending on the mood you're in. On one day you could look at it and connect it to a time you wanted the ground to swallow you up after a social blunder, like when I accidentally asked for a 1-inch sub at Subway. Or on a particularly non-analytical day, I could just think, nice landscape that. But lucky for you, he said sarcastically, I woke up on the analytical side of the bed and feel compelled to analyse it to oblivion. Also, because of this variability, you might not see what I see, so I'd love to hear your own interpretation in the comments, even if you think I've got the wrong end of the stick. Before we look at the different layers of meaning of this painting, some quick context about Andrew Wyeth is needed first. Wyeth was a 20th century American realist who used watercolours and tempera, which is pigments mixed with egg yolk, not the tasty deep-fried batter, to paint his quiet yet haunting rural scenes. What sets his work apart from the average painter is in his subjects, choosing ordinary-looking people, depicting one family from Pennsylvania and one from Maine, to give each painting a real, authentic and intimate humanity. This painting's no different, with Wyeth depicting Karl Kerner, a German immigrant turned farmer turned painter who lived on the Pennsylvanian Kerner farm, a site that was a huge inspiration for Wyeth. The unfortunate inspiration for this painting is that Kerner was very ill at the time, dying a year after this painting was finished. Wyeth was struck by how solitary this struggle of Karl's was, and the genius he was decided to juxtapose that loneliness with a vast landscape in springtime. As you can see, the figure's lying on the ground, partially covered with a white sheet of snow, melting away with the emergence of the new season. If you want to recreate how he feels, try one of those weighted blankets. I don't get why people like those, it feels suffocating, like someone's double your size lying on top of you. Sorry, that was off topic, back to the painting. With it being set in spring, Wyeth is juxtaposing the frailty of the subject with the hope of new growth and the ending of winter. Or to put it another way, in Karl being stuck in the previous season, his waning vitality means that he's no longer able to keep up with nature's pace. In other words, the passing of the seasons will always happen and nature doesn't wait for us, instead we sink into the scenery when our time's up. But this begs the question, is his struggle really so solitary and isolating? With Karl blending into the landscape, sinking into the ground, he's merging into the whole of nature, rejoining the whole as is the cycle of life. So is he really all alone? Death is universal after all. I'm going to do the unexpected now and link this painting to a line by David Bowie, as his interesting perspective of life being like quicksand unlocks an extra layer to the painting. Have a listen and you'll see the connection.
I'm sinking in the quicksand of my thought, and I ain't got the power anymore.
When you're deeply depressed that you've lost all motivation to even get out of bed, blankly staring at the ceiling, you feel like the guy in the painting, as if you don't possess the power to get up anymore. When you're as weak as Karl was at the end of his life, this paralysis is compounded tenfold. You're also painfully aware of the backwards law of being alone with your thoughts, how the more you think, the deeper you sink into the quicksand of your thoughts. Also, zooming into the painting, Karl's eyes are slightly open and his position is framed as if he's lying in bed, delaying getting up as it feels as if he's being weighed down by a sheet of thick snow. The painting's a perfect personification of that paralysis, awake yet also subjected to lying flat on the spot. He's lost control of his life, he wants to resist but he can't. One final interpretation to leave you with is that with Karl being severely ill, you can also infer that the realisation of death approaching is sending him into a nihilistic pool of despair and anguish as he doesn't feel ready to face the unknown just yet. You can see this despair at death in his other paintings, such as this one here. So when we look at this painting, at least for me, it serves as a sobering reminder to familiarise myself with the reality of our finite nature, so I can not only be ready when it comes, but make the most of life before it's too late. Better to do this when we're healthy, as it will bring everything into perspective, so we don't end up on our deathbed lamenting on missed potential. Thanks for watching, and if you want more where this came from, check out my overthinking playlist to quiet the noisy mind. See you next time.